Oh, I was there, hated the day. The day was a miserable day. I mean, it was a...
Really? I thought...
Well, was it? Well, I can tell you now, it was the worst royal engagement I ever did, a royal wedding I ever did. You know, I thought to myself, you know, this is all showbiz rubbish.
You're absolutely right. I mean, what I discovered was, of course, that she was hunting for a man, and there's no doubt she targeted Harry.
The whole thing was just stage managed to suit them.
This is not the Harry he was a few years ago. And the only reason he's not like that is he's following the requests of Meghan. He said himself, what Meghan wants, Meghan gets.
And so he was angry, and I felt, you know, we were punished for that.
That day was absolutely brutal. And I'm not exaggerating. It was the most uncomfortable royal event I've ever witnessed. Nothing felt right from the moment it started. Everything was so carefully staged, so fake. It looked more like a TV production than an actual celebration. The whole thing screamed performance, not genuine joy. You could cut the tension with a knife. He looked visibly upset, and instead of getting sympathy or support, the crowd felt punished for something nobody controlled. The photographers were nightmare fuel, positioned just 5 feet away, making it impossible to capture anything real or meaningful. You felt invisible, like your presence didn't matter at all. The entire setup seemed designed for a handful of people watching from thousands of miles away, not for the people actually standing there. The crushing moment came when the carriage rolled right past. I wanted just one glance, one real acknowledgement, but nothing.
And the photographers they engaged for the job was 5 feet away. You know, it was just hopeless. And then the carriage shot, when they went past me in the carriage, they looked the other way. So for me, it was a disaster. And
Well, was that deliberate? You were made to feel unwelcome
I
at the
felt
wedding?
so. I felt it wasn't just me; it was the whole of the British press. You know?
They looked straight past the people who showed up to support them. That's when I got it. This wasn't about connection or celebration. It was pure performance, and everyone watching was just background noise. I've covered some beautiful royal weddings: King Charles's, Prince William's, Prince Andrew's, Sophie and Edward's. Each one had warmth and tradition. But Windsor that day was different, and not in a good way. I genuinely wanted to leave as fast as possible. What really stood out was the guest list. Beyond one family member she actually invited, the rest were celebrities who barely knew her. That's wild for a day meant to be intimate and meaningful. A royal wedding should celebrate genuine connections, but this felt like a celebrity showcase instead. The vibe was completely off. What people didn't realize was how many total strangers filled that guest list. These weren't just a few unfamiliar faces, we're talking people she'd never actually met. Some major names straight up declined. Reese Witherspoon reportedly asked, "Why would I attend a wedding where I don't even know the couple?" That wasn't just one person's reaction. It showed a real disconnect between the bride and who was actually invited. But here's the thing, Harry seemed totally unaware of any red flags.
When I think, you know, I've done some really lovely royal weddings. I did both King Charles's weddings. I did William's wedding. I did Andrew's wedding. I did Sophie and Edward. You know, I mean, they were lovely occasions. But that today, I couldn't get out of Windsor quick enough. I promise you that.
The worst royal wedding.
His entire focus was on making sure her vision happened as fast as possible. The urgency she pushed for was intense, almost like she needed to cement herself in that world of power and influence right now. When the grand wedding vision started hitting pushback from inside their circle and outside observers, she switched tactics. According to reports, she implemented a calculated strategy to lock in Harry's complete loyalty and focus. It wasn't just about one day anymore. It was about making their partnership unbreakable for the years ahead. She was strategic, methodical about ensuring his commitment. This raised serious questions about what was really happening behind closed doors. Was she holding on to something fragile, or building a bond so strong nothing could break it? The real story was way more complicated than what people saw on the surface. She apparently convinced Harry that his closest friends and longtime companions weren't needed at the ceremony. She wanted it intimate, just the two of them. He trusted her and agreed to cut out several of his oldest, most loyal friends. Picture a wedding where the groom's lifelong friends are noticeably absent. That alone tells you something about what was actually happening.
Events that happened on the actual wedding day itself. The guest list, beyond the lone family member she invited, was simply inviting celebrities who were total strangers to her. I could see, especially with a wedding of this scale, inviting a handful of people who you do not know, but certainly not to this extent. There were a huge amount of guests who she had never met. Some people didn't even come. Like, for example, Reese Witherspoon said, "Why would I go? I don't even know them."
But that's not even the wildest part. Enter the celebrity guests she personally invited. This wasn't random. It was part of a bigger, calculated plan. Meghan was thinking ahead, building a backup network outside the royal family. She wanted strong connections in the celebrity world as insurance in case royal life didn't work out the way she hoped. By surrounding herself with famous people, she'd have powerful connections and influence no matter what happened next. Strategic? Absolutely. The entertainment world connections shaped everything here. Her guest list was packed with major A-list celebrities from Hollywood and music. To outsiders, it looked like she was just bringing her Hollywood lifestyle into royal tradition, but there's way more going on underneath. According to experts, this was pure strategy. Those guests weren't just there to celebrate. They were pieces of a bigger network of power and influence. Long before Harry and Meghan ever talked publicly about stepping back from royal duties, that wedding was already working as a launching pad. They were building alliances and setting up their future outside the palace. Think of it like planting seeds that would grow later. The whole spectacle, broadcast worldwide and watched by millions, was masking something much deeper underneath. It was laying the foundation for something way bigger than anybody realized at the time.
All my life, you know, and then Oprah Winfrey had met them once. She was a guest. The Clooneys, you know, the guests. I mean, never met them before, but they were the guests. And, you know, I thought to myself, you know, this is all showbiz.
Everyone thought the royal family had it all together at the wedding, but within months, everything started falling apart. His book, Spare, dropped and exposed all these personal family secrets. It was shocking to everybody. What people thought was rock-solid unity turned out to be built on sand. When they did that Oprah interview, it was a game changer. They weren't holding back. They laid out everything about the pressure and struggle behind palace walls. Then came their Netflix projects. These weren't casual documentaries. They were deep dives into painful family drama that kept people glued to their screens. The story kept getting bigger and more complicated with every project they released. Industry expert Duncan Larkham made it clear the real problems didn't just show up randomly. According to him, the whole thing kicked off right after the wedding. That fairy tale event that looked like a fresh start, it actually marked the exact moment everything shifted. That's when loyalties changed and tension started building underneath the surface. The wedding wasn't a celebration. It was ground zero for what was coming. Royal biographer Angela Levin added major context to the whole situation. Back in 2017, while finishing Harry's biography, she decided to meet him in person to verify details.
You know, most of that interview was left on the cutting room floor because it was so one-sided and it was so unfair. And I think about watching it now, and you know, the bit about Archie and the colour of his skin, and I knew they'd be seething. I knew the Queen would be seething. I knew that the Prince of Wales, Prince Charles would be seething. It would be.
What happened at his place shocked her. One of his aides pulled her aside and gave her a serious warning. The message was direct: be extremely careful when bringing up Meghan. Harry was way more sensitive about her than anybody realized. Whenever her name came up, he'd get visibly anxious and on edge. This was before they'd even announced the engagement to the world. Everyone was in the dark, but behind closed doors they were already planning their future together. The wedding was being mapped out while this tension was quietly building. Nobody on the outside saw it coming. The aide made it crystal clear if Levin asked too many questions or kept bringing up Meghan, Harry might get so upset he'd ask her to leave. That wasn't just advice, that was a serious red flag. Levin had already noticed Harry acting different. He seemed guarded, distracted, weighed down by something new. She realized his emotional state was shifting. There was clearly something deeper going on that nobody outside his inner circle could see. This moment showed how fragile things really were behind that polished royal image.
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, what I discovered was, of course, that she was hunting for a man, in England from 2013 onwards, when her marriage had crashed and she couldn't find anyone in Canada at the time. And she wanted wealth and she wanted fame. And there's no doubt she targeted Harry and found someone who was a childhood friend of his who could introduce them. And then on the days before they met at their blind meeting in a club in London, she researched Harry very carefully and knew exactly what buttons to press.
Meghan's influence was reshaping everything before she even officially joined the family. Harry, known for his loyalty, seemed totally captivated by her almost immediately. The effects started showing up everywhere, especially with royal traditions. Take the tiara situation. Those weren't just decorative pieces. Each one had history, symbolism, and specific rules about when they could be worn. There was a whole unspoken code about which tiara fit where. Getting it wrong was a big deal. Meghan wanted to wear this stunning emerald tiara, beautiful piece with an exotic backstory connected to Russian heritage. But this wasn't a simple fashion request. It caused serious problems behind the scenes. The issue? That tiara had a connection to a complicated historical moment. People believed it came into the royal vault right after the Russian Revolution. The association with that turbulent political period raised major red flags. A lot of people saw it as potentially controversial. Everything we've uncovered about Harry and Meghan's journey reveals a story that goes way deeper than surface-level drama. From that meticulously choreographed wedding day to their dramatic exit from royal life, we're looking at a masterclass in strategic planning and narrative control.
How on earth can he stay with her? And the same then happened when they went to Tommy Inskip's wedding in Jamaica, which was a great friend of Harry's, who in the end was banned from the dinner after their wedding.
Yeah, well, I know at least 3 of the very good friends were apparently
banned, all by Meghan.
And then they saw all these celebrities filing it.
Exactly.
Who'd known her about 3 minutes.
Yeah, if that.
What appeared to be a fairy tale moment was actually the foundation for something far more calculated and complex. The pieces didn't just fall into place randomly, they were positioned deliberately, moved intentionally, and executed with precision. Let's start by examining what that wedding actually represented. It wasn't just 2 people getting married, it was the beginning of a complete restructuring of relationships and allegiances. The guest list tells the real story, packed with A-list celebrities she barely knew, celebrity connections from Hollywood and the music industry, and notably absent were Harry's oldest, most trusted friends. This wasn't an oversight. This was strategic. Meghan was building a network outside the royal family from day one. She was creating a support system, a backup plan, an escape route before she even officially joined the institution. Think about that for a second. Before the engagement was even public, before the wedding invitations went out, she was already plotting her exit strategy. She was already envisioning a future where she'd need powerful allies in the celebrity world. That's not the thinking of someone who wanted to embrace royal life.
She's a creature of Hollywood. She knows that celebrity images is what earns the money, and that's what she must protect.
That's the thinking of someone who saw it as temporary, as a stepping stone towards something bigger. The exclusion of Harry's closest friends wasn't accidental either. According to what biographer Bauer documented, Meghan convinced Harry that his longtime companions weren't necessary at the wedding. She framed it as wanting an intimate celebration, just the 2 of them. But what actually happened was the removal of his support network. She isolated him from the people who knew him best, the people who could give him honest advice, the people who had his back before she entered his life. By the time they walked down the aisle, Harry was already emotionally dependent on her for validation and approval. He'd cut ties with his oldest friends at her suggestion. He was making decisions based on her perspective, and she had positioned herself as his primary emotional anchor. That's textbook isolation strategy. And it worked. Angela Levin's account of visiting Harry to finalize his biography provides a chilling window into what was happening behind closed doors. When an aide pulled her aside and warned her to be extremely careful about mentioning Meghan, that was a red flag the size of a building. Harry was anxious. He was on edge. At the mere mention of Meghan's name, he'd get visibly upset, and this happened before the world even knew they were together. before the engagement announcement, before the wedding planning.
I thought that was just so disgraceful, what she said, what Harry said, and I'm a monarchist, and I just don't think she should have been allowed to say those things unchallenged by Oprah Winfrey. It was scandalous. So I embarked on this book to actually understand what sort of person actually launches that sort of unfair, untrue attack on the royal family.
Before any public commitment, he was already this emotionally reactive about her. That kind of sensitivity and defensiveness typically signals manipulation. When someone makes you afraid to even mention another person's name, when they've convinced you that their feelings are more important than honest conversation, that's a control dynamic. And Levin recognized it immediately. She could see the fragility in Harry. She could sense that something was reshaping his emotional landscape, but she was warned to keep quiet about it. The tiara incident crystallized the entire power struggle that had been building. Meghan wanted that emerald piece. It was stunning. It was exotic. It had Russian heritage connections. But it also came with historical baggage. It was associated with the Russian Revolution. Wearing it could be seen as insensitive or politically provocative. The royal family understood these nuances because they've operated within them for centuries. Queen Elizabeth didn't say no because she was being controlling or old-fashioned. She said no because she understood the weight of symbols.
If she wants to speak, if she wants to talk to someone before him, he steps back. He's very nervous. And I think that she commands it all, quite obviously, because this is not the Harry he was a few years ago. And the only reason he's not like that is he's following the requests of Meghan. He said himself, what Meghan wants, Meghan gets. And that's what it's like.
She understood that every piece worn, every word spoken, every public appearance carries meaning. But Meghan didn't care about that context. She wanted what she wanted. And when she couldn't have it, that became a point of resentment. This clash revealed the fundamental incompatibility between Meghan's worldview and royal protocol. She viewed tradition as an obstacle. The Queen viewed it as essential architecture holding everything together. When Harry and Meghan announced their step back, the Queen's response was measured and calm. She wasn't shocked because people close to the situation had seen this coming for months. This wasn't an impulsive decision. This was the execution of a long-term plan. Meghan had been building toward this exit since before they got married. She'd positioned her celebrity network. She'd isolated Harry from his support system. She'd established herself as his primary decision-maker. She'd built the psychological framework that would allow him to walk away from everything. And when the moment came, it happened. They stepped back. They signed Netflix deals.
And also she pushes Harry out the way, or she pulls him, if she wants to go and he's still talking, she pulls him, she gives him a look, and he has to come with her. I don't think she realises that we all see that. Who does that?
They started their media empire, and they never looked back. But here's where the story gets really interesting. After they'd left the royal family, they couldn't just disappear. They needed to control the narrative. Because if they didn't tell their story, someone else would. So they sat down with Oprah, not just for a conversation. For a strategic media event designed to shape public perception, they opened up about struggles, about allegedly racist comments, about mental health challenges, about feeling unsupported by the institution. Every claim was presented without contradiction. Every allegation went unchallenged. They controlled the entire narrative. They got to be the victims. They got to be the sympathetic figures. They got to be right, and the public ate it up. Millions of people watched. Millions of people believed them. Millions of people sided with them against the royal family. Then came the Netflix projects. These weren't casual documentaries. They were deep, ongoing explorations of their personal lives, their struggles, their triumphs, their perspective on everything that happened. Season after season, project after project.
Meghan had her heart set on this tiara with emeralds, and Prince Harry hit the roof when they were told it was impossible for her to wear. Provenance of the tiara could not be established. There were concerns that it could have come from Russia originally. There was a very heated exchange that prompted the Queen to speak to Harry. She said, Meghan cannot have whatever she wants. She gets what tiaras she's given by me.
Each one peeling back another layer, each one revealing more intimate details, each one keeping the public obsessed with their drama. They'd transformed from members of the royal family into celebrities, and they understood celebrity far better than they understood royal protocol. They knew how to feed the media machine. They knew how to keep people interested. They knew how to monetize their narrative. Then Harry dropped the book. Spare. Not a careful, measured reflection on his life, a raw, unfiltered dump of family secrets. He talked about his mental health, his struggles, his resentment toward his family. He exposed conversations. He revealed details that should have stayed private, but from his perspective, he was being honest. He was healing. He was processing trauma. From the royal family's perspective, he was a traitor. He was burning bridges. He was betraying confidences. He was choosing her over them. And every single time he made that choice, it strengthened Meghan's position in his life. Every time he sided with her narrative, he moved further away from his family.
And I think that Meghan never wants to come back here because she hated the country and she hated being a member of the royal family. And she's not someone who wants to take sixth position. Harry's sixth in line to the throne. She didn't like that. She wants to be out there in front. So she doesn't want to come.
It was a calculated progression, each step designed to deepen his dependence on her, each move designed to make reconciliation harder and harder. Because here's the thing about Meghan's influence that people don't want to discuss openly. It's absolute. Royal commentator Robert Levin documented it clearly. Harry doesn't make major decisions without her approval. If she's not on board with something, it doesn't happen. She's involved in crafting his speeches. She shapes his public messaging. She controls his media presence. She steers his decisions. That's not partnership. That's not equality. That's dominance wrapped up in romantic language. He's become a character in her story rather than the author of his own narrative. His voice has gotten quieter, his perspectives have been overshadowed, his independence has been systematically dismantled, and he seems willing to accept this because it's framed as love, it's framed as loyalty, it's framed as them against the world. But what's actually happening is something much darker. What we're witnessing is the complete transformation of a vulnerable man by someone with clear ambitions and strategic thinking. Harry came into this relationship already damaged. He lost his mother traumatically. He struggled with his place in the royal hierarchy. He felt like an outsider in his own family. He was searching for meaning and connection. Then Meghan showed up, confident, ambitious, with a vision of a different life. She offered him an escape route. She offered him someone who would prioritize him, someone who would fight for him, someone who would make him the center of her world.
Of course he's scared of Meghan. He's terrified of her. I think he would have gone away a long time ago. I think she's completely controlling him. And you see now that he's absolutely used to being behind her.
But at what cost? He's isolated from his family. He barely speaks to his father. His relationship with his brother is destroyed. He's cut off most of his oldest friends. He's dependent on her for emotional validation. He's dependent on her for career decisions. He's dependent on her for how he presents himself to the world. He's trapped in a dynamic where her happiness depends on his compliance, where his value is measured by how much he's willing to sacrifice for her vision. That's not love. That's entrapment. And the most tragic part is that he probably doesn't even realize it. What we're really watching unfold is a textbook case of how someone can position themselves as the victim while systematically dismantling everything around them. The Queen treated everyone fairly. The royal family had protocols for legitimate reasons. Traditions existed because they served purposes. They'd been refined over centuries. But when someone decides that their personal desires matter more than institutional stability, more than family bonds, more than historical weight, that's when things collapse. And Meghan made that choice. She decided that her ambitions mattered more than respecting the institution Harry was born into. She decided that her comfort mattered more than his family connections. She decided that her narrative mattered more than anyone else's truth. The wedding wasn't just an event. It was a launching pad. Everything that came after was predictable if you understood what was actually happening beneath the surface. The strategic guest list, the celebrity network, the isolation of Harry, the removal of his support system, the psychological reshaping of his dependencies, the establishment of her as his primary decision-maker. All of this was foundation work. All of this was preparation for what would come next. The exit, the media blitz, the narrative control, the transformation of personal drama into a global obsession, and it worked. They went from being members of the royal family to being global celebrities. They built a media empire. They signed multi-million-dollar deals. They became cultural commentators on their own lives. They monetized their trauma. They turned their family conflict into content. They created an entire industry around their story. That's not failure. That's success by their metrics. They got exactly what they wanted: power, influence, wealth, control. But here's what's important to understand as we reflect on this entire saga. This isn't just about two people. This is about power dynamics in modern relationships. This is about how someone can use emotional intimacy as a tool for control. This is about how someone can position themselves as a victim while being the architect of destruction. This is about how narrative control matters more than truth. This is about how celebrity culture prioritizes drama over substance. This is about how a compelling story can override reality. This is about how the public can be manipulated into believing a version of events that serves someone's interests. Looking back at that wedding day that seemed so perfect, that seemed so joyful, that seemed like a beginning, we can now see it for what it actually was: a strategic move in a larger game, a calculated first step in a complete life restructuring, a moment where a vulnerable man was positioned to become dependent on an ambitious woman with clear plans about how to use him. Everything that came after was just the inevitable unfolding of what was set in motion that day. This story is still evolving. There will be more revelations, more projects, more drama, more attempts to control the narrative. Because once you've built an empire on personal conflict, you need to keep that conflict alive to keep the empire profitable. You need fresh drama, fresh revelations, fresh reasons for people to care. And they've shown they're willing to go deep into their family's private struggles to generate that content. They've shown they're willing to sacrifice relationships for ratings. They've shown that no boundary is too sacred to cross if it serves their narrative. So now that you understand the full arc, now that you can see how the pieces connect, now that you understand what was really happening beneath the surface, we want to hear your perspective. Do you see this story the way we're presenting it? Do you think Meghan was strategic and manipulative, or just someone trying to escape a world that didn't work for her? Do you believe Harry is a victim or a willing participant in this narrative? Do you think the royal family handled things poorly, or did they respond appropriately? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Share your perspective. This story is bigger than just one couple. It's about power, about influence, about how modern celebrity culture operates, about how people can reshape reality through narrative control. If this deep dive helped you understand what's really been happening behind closed doors, if you see the connections we're laying out, hit that like button, share this with people who need to understand the full story. Subscribe to our channel because we're committed to uncovering the real narratives, the untold angles, the connections nobody else is making. Thanks for watching, thanks for engaging with this story, and we'll catch you on the next one.